Hello, and welcome to episode 45 of A Week in Watches, a weekly look back at notable stories and releases from the world of watches. I'm your host, Zach Weiss, co-founder of Worn & Wound. Thanks for joining me. This week we have, surprisingly, some new releases. Okay, most are new. One came out actually in the wake of Watches and Wonders, and I just wanted to talk about it. Surprise, surprise, it's a Seiko. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And if you wouldn't mind, please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. It helps us out with, those pesky algorithms and such. Before we get into it, this week's sponsor is Whatnot, a live stream auction app where you can buy and sell unique items as well as connect with other collectors in real time. Stay tuned to later in the show to find out more, as well as where to find Wind Up Watch Shop on Whatnot. Okay, our first story, Timex tools up the Q. The Timex Q has been a runaway success for the affordable staple since launching in 2019. The combination of an unabashedly retro design that often includes a bracelet with a hard-to-beat price point has made them a fun addition to the collections of many. Since their launch, they have released more colorways than I can count and several new versions, including a very popular GMT and a surprisingly sexy chronograph. So where can the Q go from here? Well, the answer was in combining those two complications into one new toolish Q. An uncommon combination, the officially titled Q Timex 3 Timezone Chronograph features both chronograph and dual time complications, or GMT, as well as a rotating 12-hour bezel for that third time zone. Unlike the other Q Chrono, the subdials are arranged at 6, 9, and 12. This used to be the more common arrangement, at least when I got started in this. It's typical of the Valjoux 7750 that was replaced by the 369 chronograph layout, which provides a kind of a vintage flair and symmetry. I, however, have become sort of nostalgic for the 6-9-12 layout, which brings a more modern tool watch feel to the Q that I think looks awesome. Interestingly, the layout includes active seconds at 6, a 60-minute counter at 9, and a 24-hour hand at 12, which is likely tied to the primary hour hand, which is actually pretty useful. The dial design is toolish as well, featuring large lume plots that cut into an angled chapter ring, which combined with the GMT hand and T-cross hour hand give the watch a slightly Explorer 2 feel, but like a chronograph version. It all works very well, especially given the price point, which is starting at just $219. There's a few versions, including a polar model that might just be calling my name. So what do you think of these? Are they fun tool time? Let us know. All right, Seiko 5's got big ambition in smaller watches. Just a few episodes ago, we talked about the new Seiko 5 36mm watches. I was beyond myself in excitement. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but I was genuinely very into it. Those watches felt like true spiritual successors to the Seiko 5 field watches many of us cherish, myself included. Well, hot on the heels of that release and in the midst of Watches and Wonders noise, Seiko 5 announced new 38mm versions of their SKX 007 inspired diver. Why shrink the 007? Well, there's precedent, as Seiko also made the beloved SKX 013 model, which was basically a scaled-down 007 at 38mm. While neither were Seiko 5s, we now have successors to both. Okay, the new watches aren't ISO divers, they don't have screw-down crowns, they are 100 meters versus 200 meter water resistance, I know. But what are you gonna do? Can't change the world, and Seiko has a pretty rad solar diver that fits the bill if you're looking for small and ISO certified and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, Seiko 5 launched these new 38mm dive style watches, and we're into it. More specifically, I'm into it. There are 4 models at launch, one in black, one in a kind of champagne-y hue, a bright orange, and a surprising minty green. All are on bracelets, all have the 4R36 day-date movement inside, and all have 20mm lugs, which to me matters. And all come in at $325. Why am I so hopped up on this? Well, as much as I love the 007 and the corresponding Seiko 5s for what they represent, they just don't fit my wrist very well. A 38mm version with 20mm lugs is just more to my taste. These new watches are really cool, but I am also hoping that they drop their GMT in there very soon. And now a bit more about this week's sponsor. Join us for the Wind Up Watch Shop's next live streaming session on Whatnot. Ricardo Cime, our shop manager, will be hosting and will showcase some exciting deals, giveaways, and some very unique auctions. For those of you who aren't yet familiar with Whatnot, it's a community marketplace where you can discover some of your favorite products, like collectible cards, sneakers, and of course watches. Our next Whatnot live stream will be on Wednesday, April 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern. The Wind Up Watch Up will be prepping some special Buy It Now bundles featuring watches such as the Citizen Super Titanium ProMaster Dive Automatic and the Zodiac Olympus Military Worn and Wound Edition, bundled with accessories from Adapt and our Worn and Wound brand. The shop is planning to give away multiple items during the course of the broadcast, and will be partnering once again with Wind Vintage to auction off some classic timepieces along the way. Once again, that Whatnot live stream will be on Wednesday, April 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Use our invite link in the description to sign up for Whatnot and download the app for a free $15 credit towards your first purchase. Bookmark the upcoming stream so you don't miss any of the action. And now, back to the show. Zodiac tastes the rainbow. If there's one thing a watch brand can do to be divisive, it's launch a watch with a rainbow bezel. If there's another thing a watch brand can do, it's a skeletonized dial. Zodiac has either gone crazy or had a stroke of genius with their newest release, the Super Seawolf Compression Skeleton, which combines those very two things. Before getting into it, it's worth noting that while Zodiac is known for playing with color, they typically release easy-to-digest, crowd-pleasing versions of the Super Seawolf line. You know, Sherbert, this blue, you've seen them all. So we'll give them a bit of an allowance in trying something daring here, since they've shown they know what they are doing otherwise. Anyway, the skeleton features a bezel that is sort of a rainbow, sort of a psychedelic gradient. It's got blue, yellow, green, magenta, red, purple, and probably other colors I don't quite know the names of, blending into each other in a way that almost looks like it's airbrushed. Kind of like a graphic on the side of a garage rock band's touring van or something. Did Bill and Ted have one for their band Wild Stallions? I can't remember. But why stop there? The dial is also completely open in the center, showing the STP 615 skeleton caliber inside. With black bridges, golden gears, jewels, a skeletonized barrel, and of course the balance wheel up at 12, the 615 puts the inner workings of the watch on full display. Through the case back, you can see even more of the 615, including a blue rotor, which is a neat touch. As for the rest, it still has their 40mm case with 200 meters of water resistance and comes mounted to a 5-link Jubilee style bracelet. This all comes in at $18.95, which is a bit more than your average Seawolf. So what do you think of this? Is this too much, a lot of fun, the perfect summer watch? Let us know in the comments below. All right, now for the release of the week, Autodromo revs up the Group B collection. New York's own Autodromo, a purveyor of watches and accessories inspired by a love of motorsports and all things automotive, I'm sure you know them already, as well as one of the early brands to emerge from the modern micro-brand scene, has announced a new addition to their fan-favorite Group B line that is likely to be a huge hit. They've teamed up with Hodinkee to launch the Group B Rallysport Chronograph. Just as a quick refresher, the Group B watches, which first launched in 2015, yes, that's about 8 years ago, which is mind-boggling to me. I remember these watches launching just like yesterday. They were inspired by the notoriously brutal and tech-forward Group B rally cars of the 1980s, which apparently got a lot of people killed or something. They were short-lived. The cars were boxy and brutal, which inspired the design of the Group B watch case. The case mixed steel and titanium, and they're 39mm. They were light, architectural, and came in under 10mm, which is actually still quite impressive, especially considering this was 8 years ago, as I keep reminding myself. Since then, there have been several versions, from the aluminum chassis Evoluzione edition to the Series 2, which added a bracelet and 20mm lugs. And now, perhaps, is the ultimate version, the manual wound Group B Rallysport Chronographs. Launching in 5 colors, the Group B Chronos take the same basic case design, mixing steel and titanium for a slightly brutalist but still appealing look. They appear to have upped it just slightly to 40 millimeters and increased the height to 13.4 millimeters to account for the Sellita SW510 movement inside. They've also added hexagonal pushers and what appears to be a larger crown for easier winding. The dial also retains the Group B DNA, but adds in pretty clear reference to the work of the Italian designer Giorgetto Giugiaro, who famously pioneered the brutalist wedge designs of the 80s, as well as designed the early 80s 7A28 powered Seiko Speedmaster, which is also known as the Ripley because it was worn by Sigourney Weaver's character in Aliens, the superior sequel. Just kidding. It's both great. So on the Group B Rallysport, you'll find a dual layer design with the upper layer featuring a large cutout that fully contains the 3 sub-dials on the layer below. This is straight off of the Giugiaro Seiko, as are the hour and minute hands, which have a distinct pinstripe sort of design and kind of bright contrasting colors. The other elements play off of the Group B's language, and I have to say, they really come together. I love the Giugiaro nod here, and it just works perfectly in the context. I believe it's also an inspiration for the watch in general. It also gave Autodromo an opportunity to bring a lot more color into the watches, which are typically pretty stripped down. There are 5 versions, including one that is black with orange accents, which is the most kind of classic Group B looking of the lot, and then 4 fairly wild additional versions. Each version is limited to 100 pieces for a total of 500 watches, and each goes for $14.95, which is a surprisingly good value for a Swiss manual chronograph right now. Billed as a Hodinkee exclusive collaboration, each is numbered out of 100 and features Autodromo X Hodinkee on the case back. The watch is launched on April 11th in the Hodinkee shop, and I'm hoping they're still around when this goes live so you can get a chance to pick one up. Once again, I can't time these things, Anyway, so fingers crossed. And that's a wrap on episode 45. Thanks again for tuning in. I'd like to thank Whatnot for sponsoring this episode. Be sure to check out that upcoming Wind Up Watch Shop stream. If you enjoyed this episode, or maybe even if you didn't, please like and subscribe, or at least subscribe. Now like it too. And be sure to head to wornandwound.com daily for more excellent watch coverage. We'll see you soon.